Alright, welcome back to another Art of War 3 replay. I'm your host, John Cena, and today we're going to be doing a clan versus clan 2v2 battle. I'm going to be the blue Confederate player, and my ally Bullet 82 MK2 is going to be the green Confederate player. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to be facing off against two resistance players on the H Island map, and we can see some early game action unfolding on the battlefield. I've got a fortress there to secure some early game resources. Meanwhile, Bullet is producing some units and teching up to HQ3. But you can see from my scout onto the base there that Red is already HQ3 as well. So plan for this game is I'm going to go for the ground build, and Bullet is going to go for the aviation build. We can see that there's a hawk from the Red player harassing me already. Bullet got a nice scout onto the Red player, and we can see that Red was already teching up to HQ4. We can see a little bit of a bug there with the construction graphics. So meanwhile on our end, we're both still HQ3. I'm trying to produce a standing ground army before I tech up to HQ4, but I'm going to need to tech up eventually. So we got some Vertex coming in from Bullet. Bullet's going to snipe a couple of those Caymans, and those Caymans are going to go down. We see Hawks now coming in for Red. Red's going to score some hits onto Bullet, but is now going to retreat. Meanwhile, I'm producing Typhoons for defense and kind of spreading them out. I'm trying to keep my ground troops away from the Hawks as much as possible, but I am going to take some casualties here. Meanwhile, Bullet is dropping a few anti-air towers for defense on his end. Vertex coming in now once again. They're going to score a direct hit on that airfield there. We see that Red is already HQ4 at this time, and we can see that Red's got a small ground army at the front entrance of their base. Bullet is going to retreat now. At this time, Bullet is going to continue to tech up. I think at this point, Bullet's trying to go for the mass Vertex build. Here comes a nice engagement over the battlefield. Bullet is going to take down a Hawk. Very nicely done. I'm going to tell Bullet to send a scout over to Yellow whenever he's able to, just so we can see what the Yellow player is up to. And we can see that Yellow is going for mass dragonflies. So not a lot of anti-air here, just 4 anti-air towers for the Yellow player. Not a lot of variety in terms of the ground troop composition though. Red sending in their Hawks to harass my ground troops there, but I've got plenty of Typhoons in the mix, and they're nicely spread out overall. I'm just continuing to build my army here. I'm going to mix in some Zeus tanks, which I usually don't do, but I had a contract to fulfill. And here comes the first major attack of the battle. Dragonflies are now moving in onto Bullet's base. Bullet's got a lot of Vertex though in play here. It has air supremacy, but I'm a little concerned about the number of Dragonflies there, so I tell Bullet I'm going to move some heavy assaults over. Meanwhile, these Hawks are dishing out some good damage against my troops, but they're also taking some heavy fire. And it looks like Yellow has been repelled. Yellow is going to retreat. They don't have the firepower to push through as these Vertex dish out good damage against them. So we can see now that I'm going to move to point C. So we're going to see if we can maybe launch an assault onto the Yellow player potentially, but looks like Red is going to get a scout onto my base, so I actually don't want to risk getting attacked by the Red player. So I'm actually going to move my ground troops forward to see what the Red player is up to. I tell Bullet to send a scout over to Red. I just want to see if the Red has any sort of ground troops before I launch an attack. And we get a nice scout on Red. Red has a very nice defensive line set up with those Jaguar tanks. So on my end, I'm going to need to wait, because if I send my army now, my army will get destroyed by those Jaguar tanks, and we're going to lose. So I tell Bullet, if he can hit a few of those Jaguar tanks and punch a hole for me, then I'll be able to take care of the rest. Here come the Vertex, and we score some few hits onto the Jaguar tanks, but those Chameleons are going to cover the Jaguar tanks on the ground, and Bullet is going to have to retreat. So I'm not going to launch an assault yet again. Bullet is going to go ahead and transition towards Thors. So I've got some ground troops here just trying to collect that resource container. We're going to clean up a scout, and here comes some ground troops from Red. Red is trying to launch an assault, and Red is going to try and bait me into that narrow pass there, but I'm not going to fully commit I don't want to risk it yet, so I'm going to move my ground troops back out of range. And I'm going to wait for the red player to come to me before I move back in. So red's a little bit closer. I'm going to move some ground troops in. I'm a little bit cautious though. I don't want to move all the way into that narrow pass there. That is going to be suicidal for my troops, even though I've got a couple shield generators. So I'm going to move back. I don't want to fully engage quite yet. So now looks like yellow's coming in with some dragonflies, and red's now moving their ground troops onto my side of things. So I'm going to need to engage. I don't have a choice at this point, but I do have better tactical positioning. I'm not stuck in that narrow passway, so I'm going to be able to better surround the JCP army here and push an army through. So here we go, now pushing a full army through the JCP, and this is a ton of ground troops. My shield generators are wandering a little too far out in the front. Here comes the Vertex for Bullet. Bullet scoring some nice hits, but that is a ton of porcupines from the yellow player. Yellow is dishing out tons of damage against Bullet, but Bullet's Vertex are outspeeding some of these missiles as well, which is very nice, and one benefit that Vertex have once you get to Diamond League. So at this point, things are not looking good. I've only got about 60 command points worth of units, and if red attacks now, I might lose the battle. So I'm going to throw on a gold production boost and just rebuild my army as fast as possible. Here comes red and yellow now, trying to make a big push onto my base. Got fire assaults, heavies, hammers, and Zeus tanks as well. We're going to try to push the red player back, and we can see that there's a lot of tanks there. We can see that they're very closely concentrated, and that would be the perfect target for a Thor. And here comes a couple of Thors from Bullet. He scores a direct hit onto those tanks. There's only a couple of Thors though, so they weren't able to fully finish off the Jaguar tanks, but that is going to be enough to push things over the edge. And now red is losing their ground army pretty quickly here. Bullet's taking some good casualties as well on his end. Meanwhile, I've regrouped at the front entrance of my base, trying to take advantage of the production bonus that I have being close to my base while I repel the assault. So at this point, we've successfully repelled the assault from the red player, so we're going to go ahead and rebuild our ground army. Meanwhile, we can see that Bullet is HQ5, I'm also HQ5, and so we're going to be able to max out command points if needed. I'm sending a heavy assault in to scout. Now we can see that red's got a JCP group in the middle of the map there, so we know that there's a little bit of map control there for red. Porcupines and dragonflies are moving back across the map for the yellow player, and these Thors are going to score a hit onto red. It looks like that building is very heavily armored. 4 Thors were not able to take it down. Bullet is going to secure some resources nicely before he loses that hammer tank. So at this point, continuing to just build the rest of my army. A hawk goes and hits my units here, which is a reminder that I need to integrate some typhoons into the mix so that my units are not vulnerable to aviation. So meanwhile, yellow launching another assault onto Bullet's base here. We see those dragonflies trying to make a push onto the base, but the combination of anti-air defenses and Vertex are cleaning up the dragonflies very nicely. Yellow's done a good job spreading their porcupines across the battlefield here though, so every time Bullet wants to fly over, he's going to take some hits from those porcupines. So Bullet is going to try to move some Zeus tanks forward to take care of those porcupines. Meanwhile on my end, I'm just continuing to amass ground units. I'm going to flag that point there, point A, and that's because I saw red moving a JCP army onto that top area there. And here come the Thors. They're going to score a direct hit onto the JCP group there. And now I'm going to launch my assault here once the JCP army has been weakened. I've got fire assaults and hammer tanks and a couple shield generators in the mix. And we can see we got 2 more Thors coming in. We're going to score some nice hits onto the JCP group as well. And now my hammer tanks and fire assaults are moving straight into the fog here. This is a lot of carnage on both sides. I've got the numbers advantage though, and my hammer tanks are going to be able to clean up this JCP very nicely. Meanwhile, Bullet's Zeus tanks were able to push back those porcupines. So I've got about 90 command points worth of units at this point in the battle, and I'm thinking of moving on to the red player's base, but I tell Bullet I'm going to move Bullet is going to scout the area first, though, just to see what kind of setup Red has for me. So here comes the Vertex, and we can see that Red is rapidly trying to reproduce their army. We see a couple Gators on the water there for Red, but Red is trying to build a defensive siege line, but that is not going to be enough. This is the perfect time to launch an assault. So I'm going to group my army as close to the base as I can before I attack. And now we're going to launch our attack. So I'm going to throw on a gold vehicle attack boost. Partially because I'm running out of common attack boosts at this time. But also because most of my army is hammer tanks. And so the hammer tanks are now moving on to the plateau. We can see that Red is HQ5 as well, trying to produce units. A ton of Dragonflies coming in for the yellow player. Yellow is now desperately trying to defend their ally. Both Red and Yellow are under pressure here. If Red goes down, Yellow is not going to be able to fight a 1v2 battle on their own. I'm going to use a gold air raid boost now, kind of switch over things a little bit. And I've got a handful of Typhoons. They're just going to dish out some steady damage against the Dragonflies, while my vehicles kind of tank damage. Thors are coming in now. They score direct hits on the factories, but again, these buildings are incredibly tanky. Looks like those Thors are not enough to take down those buildings. And I'm starting to lose my initial ground army here inside the base. Looks like some other Thors were scoring another hit onto the yellow player's base. I'm going to go ahead and regroup at the entrance of the base here, and now I've got some heavy assaults streaming in, along with a few fire assaults to support my army overall, and this is going to help me very immensely with cleaning up these Dragonflies. And with this new army composition, I'm going to be able to push onto the Red player's plateau, no problem. So Vertex now cleaning up these buildings and Dragonflies very nicely. And Red is about to lose that level for the Assault Vehicle Factory. And the Assault Vehicle Factory goes down. No more Jaguar tanks for the Red player. Red is out of units at this point. Yellow is trying to send reinforcements over as much as possible. But I don't think it's going to be enough. So other Assault Vehicle Factory goes down, and at this point, Red is down to just 3 factories and a heavily damaged Tier 5 headquarters. But at this point, most of Red's base is cleaned up. So last little bits of reinforcements coming in from Yellow, but at this point, it's pretty much good game. And shortly afterwards, the Yellow player surrendered. Alright, hope you all enjoyed this battle. We will see you in the next one. Good luck until then.
Victory.